Marcus had been standing at the same post for 3 years. Every morning at dawn, he would take his position at the eastern gate of the royal palace. Watching the sun rise over the kingdom of Aldoria, his uniform was always perfect, his sword polished to a mere shine, and his dedication unwavering. The other guards respected him, the servants nodded politely as they passed, and even some of the nobles acknowledged his presence with a slight bow. But on this particular morning, something felt different. Marcus noticed a strange tension in the air as he walked through the palace corridors to his post. Servants whispered in corners, their voices dropping to silence whenever he approached. The usual morning bustle seemed subdued, almost fearful. Even the kitchen maids, who normally chatted loudly about village gossip, worked in unusual quiet. As Marcus settled into his position by the heavy oak doors leading to the restricted eastern wing, he couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were watching him from the shadows. This section of the palace had always been off-limits to most people. Only the king, his closest advisors, and a select few servants were allowed beyond these doors. Marcus had never questioned why. A good guard followed orders without asking unnecessary questions. The morning passed slowly. Usually, Marcus would see at least a few authorized personnel coming and going. But today the corridor remained eerily empty. The silence was broken only by the distant sound of his fellow guards changing shifts in other parts of the palace. Around midday, when the sun was directly overhead, Marcus heard something that made his blood run cold. A scream. It was faint, muffled by the thick stone walls, but unmistakably human. It came from somewhere deep within the eastern wing, beyond the doors he was guarding. Marcus gripped his sword handle instinctively, his training taking over. But then the sound stopped as suddenly as it had begun, leaving him wondering if he had imagined it. Minutes later, Lord Chancellor Aldrich emerged from the eastern wing. Marcus had seen the Chancellor many times before, but never looking like this. The man's usually immaculate robes were slightly disheveled, and there were dark stains on his hands that he seemed to be trying to hide. Most disturbing of all was the expression on his face, a mixture of satisfaction and disgust that made Marcus's stomach turn. "Guard," Aldrich said, his voice carefully controlled. "You heard nothing unusual just now? You understand me?" Marcus straightened. "Yes, my lord, all has been quiet at my post." Aldrich studied him for a long moment, his cold gray eyes searching Marcus's face for any sign of doubt or curiosity. "Good. Your loyalty to the crown is noted and appreciated." As the Chancellor walked away, Marcus noticed. He was carrying a small leather bag that seemed heavy for its size. Whatever was inside clinked softly with each step, like metal against metal. The sound reminded Marcus of the surgical instruments he had seen when visiting the palace physician. After a training injury, the rest of the day passed without incident. But Marcus couldn't get the scream out of his mind. When evening came and his replacement arrived, Marcus found himself reluctant to leave his post. Something was happening in the eastern wing, something that required absolute secrecy and left even the powerful Lord Chancellor looking shaken. That night, Marcus lay in his small quarters in the guards' barracks, staring at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard that scream again. He had sworn an oath to protect the royal family and serve the kingdom with honor. But what if the kingdom itself was harboring something evil? The next morning brought no relief from his doubts. As Marcus took his position once again, he noticed that new locks had been installed on the eastern wing doors overnight. Heavy iron mechanisms that would require multiple keys to open. Someone was very serious about keeping people out, or keeping something in. Around noon, a young servant girl approached his post. She was maybe 16, with frightened eyes and trembling hands. She carried a tray of food, but instead of heading toward the main dining halls, she stopped in front of the eastern wing doors. "Please, sir," she whispered to Marcus, "could you unlock the doors? I'm supposed to deliver this meal, but Lord Aldrich isn't here to let me in." Marcus looked at the girl carefully. He had never seen her before, which was strange, because he knew most of the palace staff by sight. "Name, girl? Sarah, sir. I'm new to the kitchen staff." Her voice was barely audible, and she kept glancing nervously at the locked doors. "I don't have keys to these doors," Marcus told her honestly. "Only Lord Aldrich and a few others are authorized to enter. You'll need to wait for him to return." The girl's face fell, and for a moment Marcus thought she might cry. "But sir, they're expecting this food. They get so angry when meals are late. Please, there must be something you can do." Before Marcus could respond, heavy footsteps echoed. Down the corridor, Lord Aldrich was returning, and he was not alone. 2 other men walked beside him, men Marcus didn't recognize. They wore expensive clothes but moved like soldiers, and there was something cold and calculating in their eyes. "What is this?" Aldrich demanded, seeing the servant girl with her tray. "The meal, my lord," Sarah stammered. "For the prisoners and—" The she stopped abruptly, her face going pale as she realized what she had almost said. Aldrich's expression darkened dangerously. "Prisoners? What prisoners, girl?" Marcus felt his world tilting. Prisoners? In the royal palace? What kind of prisoners would be kept in such secrecy, requiring food deliveries and causing people to scream? The girl began to shake violently. "I'm sorry, my lord. I misspoke. I meant the guest rooms. For the distinguished guests, indeed." Aldrich's voice was like ice. "Guards, escort this confused young woman to the dungeons below. It seems she needs time to remember her proper duties." As the 2 strange men seized the terrified girl's arms, she dropped the tray. The metal plates clattered to the stone floor, and Marcus saw something that made his heart race. Mixed with the ordinary bread and soup were small vials of medicine and rolls of clean bandages. Why would guests need medical supplies with their meals? As they dragged the sobbing girl away, Lord Aldrich turned to Marcus with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Guard Marcus, isn't it? You've been very faithful. In your duties, perhaps it's time we discussed a promotion." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine at Lord Aldrich's words. In his 3 years of service, he had never received special attention from someone so high in the palace hierarchy. Promotions for guards like him came through proper channels, through his captain, not directly from the Lord Chancellor. It felt like a trap. "Thank you for your consideration, my lord," Marcus replied carefully. "I am content in my current position, serving faithfully wherever I am needed." Aldrich stepped closer, his gray eyes studying Marcus intently. "Contentment is admirable, but ambition serves the crown better. A man of your ... observational skills might be valuable in more sensitive roles." The emphasis on observational skills made Marcus's blood run cold. Aldrich knew that Marcus had noticed things. The scream, the medical supplies, the terrified servant girls slip about prisoners. This wasn't about a promotion at all. "I observe only what is necessary for my duties, my lord," Marcus said, keeping his voice steady. Of course, Aldrich smiled again, that same cold expression. "Walk with me, Marcus. I want to show you something that might interest you." It wasn't a request. Marcus fell into step beside the Lord Chancellor, his hand instinctively resting on his sword hilt. They walked deeper into the palace, past familiar corridors, and into areas Marcus had never seen before. The architecture here was older, more primitive, with rough stone walls and narrow passages lit by flickering torches. "Tell me, Marcus," Aldrich said as they walked, "what do you know about the history of our kingdom?" "I know that King Edmund is a just and fair ruler, beloved by his people," Marcus replied, reciting what every citizen of Aldoria learned as a child. "Yes, but before Edmund, before his father, back to the founding of our dynasty." Aldrich stopped at a heavy wooden door bound with iron. Do you know how the first king of Aldoria came to power?" "Through strength," Aldrich said, producing an ornate key. "From his robes, through the willingness to do what others could not." The key turned with a grinding sound, and the door swung open to reveal a staircase, leading down into darkness. The smell that rose from below made Marcus gag, a mixture of unwashed bodies, fear, and something else he couldn't identify. "After you," Aldrich said pleasantly. Marcus had no choice but to descend. Took them deeper underground, and the smell grew stronger. Torches lined the walls, casting dancing shadows that seemed to move independently. At the bottom of the stairs was another corridor, this one with heavy doors spaced evenly along both sides. From behind those doors came sounds that Marcus would never forget. Quiet sobbing, whispered prayers, the occasional muffled scream. And underneath it all, a strange rhythmic noise like someone working with tools. "Welcome to the foundation of our kingdom's prosperity," Aldrich said, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "These chambers have been in continuous use for over 2 centuries. Every great achievement of Aldoria has been built upon the work done. Here?" Marcus stopped walking. "What work?" Instead of answering, Aldrich led him to a small window set into one of the doors. "Look inside." Marcus peered through the thick glass and immediately wished he hadn't. The room beyond was lit by bright oil lamps, revealing a sight that would haunt his dreams forever. A man in a blood-stained apron was bent over a table where someone was strapped down. The person on the table was alive, but unconscious, and the man in the apron was carefully removing something from their chest with surgical precision. "Medical research," Aldrich explained calmly, as if discussing the weather. "Our kingdom's physicians are the most advanced in the world. Our crops resist diseases that devastate neighboring kingdoms, all thanks to the knowledge gained here." Marcus stumbled backward from the window, his face pale. "Those are people in there. Living people. Criminals," Aldrich said dismissively. "Enemies of the state. The insane. People who would otherwise be executed or left to die anyway. Here their suffering serves a greater purpose." "This is madness," Marcus whispered. "This is evil." Aldrich's pleasant expression vanished. "This is necessity. Do you think our enemies share your squeamishness? Do you think the kingdoms that would destroy us hesitate to use every advantage available to them?" They moved to another window. Inside this room, Marcus saw a different kind of horror. A woman was conscious and aware, but her limbs had been replaced with crude mechanical devices that a man in a white coat was testing. Soldiers who cannot be killed by conventional means. "We are perhaps 5 years away from creating an army that no enemy force could defeat." Marcus turned away, sickened. "How many people are down here?" "Currently, about 40. The number varies depending on our research needs and the availability of subjects. We acquired 3 new subjects just this morning, family caught trying to steal from the royal treasury." The casual way he spoke about human beings as subjects and acquisitions made Marcus feel like he was drowning in ice water. A family. Father, mother, and a daughter of perhaps 10 years. The child will be particularly useful for testing new medicines. Children's bodies respond differently than adults, you see. Marcus had heard enough. He turned toward the stairs, but Aldrich's voice stopped him. "Where are you going, Marcus?" "Back to my post. I have duties to perform." "Indeed you do. But those duties have changed." Aldrich moved to block Marcus's path. "To the stairs. You see, now you know our secret. That creates certain ... complications." 2 guards emerged from the shadows at the far end of the corridor. Marcus recognized them as the men who had dragged away the servant girl. They were armed and positioned to prevent any escape. "I have 2 options to offer you," Aldrich continued. "The first is to join our work. And the second option," Aldrich gestured toward the doors lining the corridor, "you become part of the research yourself. I must say, a healthy young soldier would provide excellent material for our studies on human endurance and pain tolerance." Marcus's hand moved to his sword, but he knew he was outnumbered and trapped underground with no knowledge of alternative exits. Still, the thought of what was happening behind these doors, the screams, the mechanical limbs. "I need time to think," Marcus said carefully. "Of course. Wisdom before action, always admirable." Aldrich nodded to his guards. "Escort our friend Marcus to the comfortable quarters we've prepared for him. Give him the night to consider his options. Tomorrow, he can give me his answer." As they led him away, Marcus caught a glimpse through one more window. Inside, he saw the servant girl, Sarah, strapped to a table while a man in an apron approached her with a strange device that glowed with an unnatural light. Her terrified eyes met his through the glass. And Marcus made a promise to himself that he would find a way to stop this nightmare, no matter the cost. The cell they locked Marcus in was small, but clean, with a narrow bed and a single barred window high on the wall. It was better treatment than he had expected, which only confirmed that Aldrich genuinely wanted him to join their operation, rather than become another victim. The Lord Chancellor needed loyal guards who could keep secrets and handle the darker aspects of maintaining power. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, his mind racing. Every instinct told him to refuse Aldrich's offer, but he also knew that a direct refusal would mean death or worse. He had seen what happened in those underground chambers, and the thought of ending up as one of their test subjects made his skin crawl. But how could he live with himself if he became part of this horror? As night fell, the sounds from the other chambers grew quieter, but never completely stopped. Somewhere in the darkness, people were suffering for the supposed greater good of the kingdom. Marcus thought about his oath as a royal guard, to protect the innocent and serve justice. How had that oath led him to this moment? Around midnight, Marcus heard soft footsteps in the corridor outside his cell. A key turned in the lock, and the door opened slowly. Instead of guards, a figure in a hooded cloak stepped inside. In the dim light, Marcus could see it was a woman, but her face remained hidden in shadow. "Who are you?" Marcus whispered. "Someone who has been waiting for a chance like this," she replied in a low voice. "My name is Alina. I work in the palace kitchens during the day, but at night, I try to help where I can." She moved closer, and Marcus could see that she was middle-aged, with graying hair and kind eyes that held deep sadness. "I know what you saw down there. I know what Lord Aldrich offered you." "How do you know?" "Because I've been watching these chambers for 2 years. I've seen other guards face the same choice you're facing now. Most of them choose to join rather than die." Elena's voice was bitter. "I don't blame them. Survival is a powerful motivator." Marcus stood up. "You're here to help me escape? If that's what you want. But running away won't solve the real problem. Those people in the chambers will still be there tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. More will be brought in to replace any who die." She paused, lest someone finally does something to stop it. "What can one person do against all of this?" "Aldrich's guards, resources, and apparently the support of people high in the government." "How do we know the king himself isn't involved?" Alina reached into her cloak and pulled out a small rolled paper. "King Edmund doesn't know. I'm certain of it. These experiments began during his father's reign and have been carefully hidden from him. Aldrich and his allies present the results as advances in medicine and technology without explaining how the knowledge was obtained." She unrolled the paper, revealing a rough map of the underground chambers. "I've been documenting everything. How many prisoners? What kinds of experiments? Who comes and goes? I was waiting for someone in a position of authority who might be willing to help expose the truth." Marcus studied the map. It showed dozens of rooms, far more than he had seen during his brief tour with Aldrich. "How did you get all this information?" "Volunteer to bring food to the chambers. It's dangerous work. Most servants refuse to do it, so they welcomed my help. Over time, I've gained access to areas that most people never see." Elena's voice grew heavy. "I've watched good people die in agony for the sake of research that could often be done in other ways." "Other ways?" "Animal testing, studying people who have already died naturally, even paying volunteers for less dangerous experiments." "But Aldrich's people aren't interested in ethical methods. They want quick results, and they don't care how much pain it causes." Marcus looked at the map more carefully. One section was marked with red ink. "What's this area?" "At the worst part. They call it the innovation wing. That's where they work on the most extreme projects, the mechanical body parts you saw. Drugs that alter people's minds and other things I don't fully understand." Elena's hands were shaking. "The survival rate in that section is nearly 0. How many people know about this?" "More than you might think, fewer than you might hope. Some servants, a few guards, several physicians and engineers who do the actual work. But most of them are either too scared to speak up or too invested in the benefits to want it stopped." Marcus sat back down on the bed, overwhelmed by the scope of what he was learning. "Even if we could expose this, who would believe us? And who would have the power to stop it? There are good people in the kingdom, Marcus, nobles who still believe in honor, merchants who value human dignity, farmers who would be horrified to learn what their taxes are funding." Alina rolled up the map. But they need proof. Solid evidence that can't be dismissed or covered up. What kind of proof? Alina reached into her cloak again and produced a small leather journal. I've been keeping detailed records of everything I've witnessed. Names, dates, descriptions of experiments, results. But it's not enough. I need someone with official authority to verify what I've documented. Marcus understood. Someone like a Royal Guard. Exactly. If you were to observe these activities in your official capacity and create a report, it would carry legal weight that my word alone never could. But that would mean accepting Aldrich's offer and pretending to join their operation. Yes, it would be dangerous, and you would have to witness terrible things without being able to stop them immediately. But it might be the only way to gather enough evidence to eventually stop all of it. Marcus stood up and paced the small cell. The plan made sense, but the moral weight of it was staggering. He would have to watch innocent people suffer and die, while maintaining a pretense of loyalty to their torturers. Could he do that without losing his own humanity? Something else you should know, Alina said quietly. Today they brought in a family, a man, woman, and young girl. The girl is scheduled for an experiment tomorrow that no child has ever survived. Marcus stopped pacing. This was the family Aldrich had mentioned, the ones caught stealing from the royal treasury. Whatever their crime, no child deserved what awaited her in the innovation wing. What kind of experiment? They're testing a new drug that's supposed to enhance physical strength and healing ability. Previous trials on adults have caused massive organ failure within hours. I think a child's system might adapt better. Elena's voice was barely audible. They're wrong. It will just take longer for her to die. Marcus felt a cold rage building in his chest. When tomorrow? Dawn. They like to start early, when the screaming won't disturb the palace's normal activities. The decision crystallized in Marcus's mind. He couldn't save everyone in these chambers immediately, but maybe he could save one child while gathering the evidence needed to eventually save them all. I agree to help you. What exactly do you need me to do? Alina smiled for the first time since entering his cell. Tell Aldrich you accept his offer. Become part of their operation. Document everything you can, and when we have enough evidence, we'll find a way to get it to people who can act on it. And the girl? Leave that to me. I might know a way to delay her experiment long enough for us to find a better solution. Alina moved toward the door. But Marcus, once you commit to this path, there's no turning back. If they discover what you're really doing, your death will be long and painful. Marcus thought about his oath as a royal guard, about the innocent people suffering in the darkness below, about a child facing death at dawn. I understand. Tell me what I need to do. As Alina outlined their plan, Marcus realized that his life as a simple palace guard was over. Tomorrow, he would become something else entirely. A spy in the service of justice, working from within to destroy the kingdom's darkest secret. The question was whether he could maintain his cover long enough to make a difference, or whether he would become another victim of the very evil he was trying to stop. Dawn came too quickly. Marcus had barely slept, his mind churning with the weight of what he was about to undertake. When the guards came to escort him to Lord Aldrich, he had his story ready. He would play the part of a practical man who understood that survival sometimes required difficult choices. Aldrich waited in his private office, a richly appointed room filled with books, maps, and strange artifacts that Marcus now suspected came from the underground laboratories. The Lord Chancellor looked refreshed and pleased, as if he had slept peacefully despite the horrors being conducted under his direction. Marcus, my friend, Aldrich greeted him warmly. I trust you had time to consider my offer. I did, my lord. I've decided that serving the kingdom's interests is more important than my personal feelings about the methods involved. Marcus kept his voice steady and businesslike. If this work truly protects Aldoria from our enemies, then I want to be part of it. Aldrich's smile was genuine this time. Excellent. I knew you were a man of intelligence and pragmatism. Your first assignment will be to oversee security for today's experiments. We're testing some promising new developments that require absolute confidentiality. Of course, my lord. What specific duties do you need me to perform? Observe everything. report any security concerns, and ensure that our research staff can work without interruption. Aldrich stood and walked to a locked cabinet, from which he retrieved a brass key and a black armband. This key gives you access to most areas of the facility. The armband identifies you as authorized personnel. Wear it at all times when you're below ground. Marcus accepted both items, noting that the armband bore a symbol he had never seen before, a serpent wrapped around a sword. Is there anyone specific I should report to besides yourself? Dr. Hartwell oversees the medical research, and Master Corvin handles the mechanical innovations. Both are brilliant men who understand the importance of our work. Aldrich's expression grew serious. However, they can sometimes become so focused on their experiments that they forget security protocols. Your job is to ensure nothing compromises our operations. Understood. When should I begin? Immediately. There's a particularly significant test scheduled this morning that requires extra security measures. Aldrich walked to his desk and picked up a leather folder. The subject is a young girl, and we're testing a compound that could revolutionize military medicine. If successful, our soldiers could recover from wounds in minutes rather than weeks. Marcus forced himself to nod approvingly while his stomach churned. That would be a tremendous advantage in battle. Indeed, however, the process can be intense. For the test subject, we need to ensure that no unauthorized personnel witness the procedure and that any sounds don't disturb other palace activities. As they made their way back to the underground chambers, Marcus tried to memorize every detail of the route. Would need to know these passages intimately if he and Elena were going to have any chance of gathering evidence and eventually escaping. The facility looked different in the harsh light of day. More people moved through the corridors, physicians in white coats, assistants carrying trays of strange instruments, and guards wearing the same black armbands that Marcus now displayed. Everyone moved with purpose, as if this were simply another day at a normal workplace rather than a chamber of horrors. Dr. Hartwell met them at the entrance to the innovation wing. He was a thin man with nervous hands and eyes that never quite met anyone's gaze directly. Lord Aldrich, everything is prepared for the enhancement trial. The subject has been fasting for 12 hours as required, and we've made the necessary modifications to the restraint system. Excellent, Doctor. This is Marcus, our new security coordinator. He'll be observing today's procedure. Hartwell glanced at Marcus with obvious discomfort. Is that necessary? Additional observers can sometimes affect the subject's psychological state. Security requirements. I'm afraid Aldrich replied smoothly. We can't be too careful with such important work. They entered a room that was larger and better equipped than the chambers Marcus had seen the day before. Medical instruments lined the walls, strange machines hummed with electrical power, and the smell of chemicals was almost overwhelming. In the center of the room, strapped to a metal table, was a small figure that made Marcus's heart break. The girl couldn't have been more than 10 years old. She was conscious and terrified, her wide eyes darting between the adults surrounding her. Someone had dressed her in a thin medical gown, and her arms and legs were secured with leather restraints that were far too large for her small frame. Please, she whispered as they approached. I want to go home. Want my mama. Dr. Hartwell ignored her pleas and began checking his instruments. The enhancement serum is ready for injection. Based on our calculations, a child's metabolic rate should allow for better integration of the compound's effects. Marcus watched in horror as assistants prepared syringes filled with a glowing green liquid. This was it, the moment he would either blow his cover by trying to save one child, or maintain his disguise by allowing an innocent to suffer for the greater goal of eventually saving many more. Wait, Marcus said, his mind racing for any plausible excuse to delay the procedure. Everyone in the room turned to look at him. Is there a security concern? Aldrich asked. Possibly. I noticed that the corridor outside has been unusually busy this morning. If this procedure is as intense as you described, the sounds might be noticed by unauthorized personnel. Marcus tried to look professionally concerned rather than desperate. Perhaps we should wait until the afternoon, when fewer people are moving through the upper levels. Hartwell frowned. The timing is important for the serum's effectiveness. Delaying could compromise the results. But compromising security could end our entire operation, Marcus countered. Surely one day's delay is worth ensuring that our work remains hidden. Aldrich considered this for a moment while the little girl continued to whisper for her mother. You raise a valid point, Marcus. Doctor, can the serum be preserved until this afternoon? Well, yes, but then we wait. Security is indeed our highest priority. Aldrich nodded approvingly at Marcus. Good thinking. This is exactly the kind of oversight we need. As they prepared to leave the room, Marcus caught the girl's eye and tried to convey wordless reassurance. He had bought her a few hours, but he knew that unless Elena could work a miracle, the child would still face the same fate when afternoon came. Over the next several hours, Marcus toured the entire facility with growing horror and determination. He saw experiments that defied humanity and decency, adults having limbs replaced with mechanical devices while fully conscious, prisoners being infected with diseases to test potential cures, and people being subjected to psychological torments, designed to break their minds completely. But he also took careful mental notes of everything he observed. He memorized the layout of the chambers, identified key personnel, and began to understand the scope of the operation. This wasn't just medical research gone wrong. It was a systematic program of human experimentation designed to give Aldoria military and technological advantages over neighboring kingdoms. During his lunch break, Marcus managed to find Elena in the kitchens. She was preparing meals for the underground facility, her face grim with concentration. Did you manage to delay the girl's experiment? She asked quietly while stirring a large pot of soup. Till this afternoon? But we need a better solution. And we need it fast. Elena nodded toward a storage room. Meet me in there in 5 minutes. I have an idea, but it's risky. When Marcus joined her among the sacks of flour and barrels of preserved meat, Elena outlined a plan that was both brilliant and terrifying. There's a way to get the girl out, but it will require you to take an enormous risk. Tell me. Tonight there's a scheduled transfer of 3 deceased subjects to the burial grounds outside the palace. The bodies are transported in wooden crates and taken through a tunnel that connects to the old wine cellars. Elena pulled out a hand-drawn map. If we could substitute the living girl for one of the bodies, Marcus studied the map. How would we get her unconscious but not actually dead? I have access to certain herbs and compounds through my kitchen work. There's a mixture that can induce a death-like sleep for several hours. It's dangerous too much, and she really dies. Too little, and she wakes up at the wrong time. But it might be our only chance. And then what? Even if we get her out of the palace, where can she go? Aldrich will eventually discover she's missing and start searching. I have contacts outside the palace. People who can help her disappear and find a safe place to live. Lena's eyes were filled with desperate hope. It's not perfect, Marcus, but it's better than letting her die in agony for their twisted research. Marcus thought about the risks involved. If they were caught, both he and Elena would certainly die, and probably the girl as well. But if they did nothing, the child would definitely die anyway, and all the other victims would continue to suffer. What do you need me to do? Elena smiled grimly. Keep playing your part. Make sure you're assigned to oversee tonight's body disposal, and find a way to ensure that the girl's afternoon experiment is delayed or canceled entirely. How am I supposed to do that? You're the security coordinator now. Use your imagination. As Marcus returned to the underground facility for the afternoon shift, he realized that his plan to gradually gather evidence had already been overtaken by the immediate need to save one small life. Tonight would determine whether he was truly capable of the deception and courage this mission would require. The girl was still strapped to the table, still asking for her mama. They're still depending on strangers to show her a mercy that no one in this place had any intention of providing, except for him. The afternoon brought Marcus his first real test as a supposed collaborator in the underground horrors. As he returned to the innovation wing, he found Dr. Hartwell preparing for the delayed experiment on the little girl. The child had been given water, but no food, and her small face was pale with exhaustion and terror. Marcus knew he had to find a way to prevent this procedure without arousing suspicion. As he watched the doctor organize his instruments, an idea began to form. It was risky and would require perfect timing, but it might work. Dr. Hartwell, Marcus, approached with what he hoped looked like professional concern. "I've been reviewing the security protocols for high-priority experiments, and I've identified a potential problem." The doctor looked up from his preparation with obvious irritation. "What kind of problem? I've already delayed this procedure once today. I've been monitoring the guard rotations throughout the palace, and it appears that Captain Morrison from the main guard has been asking questions about the restricted areas. He specifically inquired about sounds coming from the eastern wing." Marcus kept his voice low and urgent. "If we proceed with this experiment now, and it produces the kind of reactions you described, we risk drawing unwanted attention at the worst possible time." Dr. Hartwell's face went pale. Captain Morrison was indeed a real person, a veteran guard, known for his strict adherence to protocol and his curiosity about anything that seemed out of place. "Are you certain about this? I overheard him discussing it with 2 other guards this morning. They're planning to investigate any unusual sounds they hear from this area." Marcus was lying smoothly now, but the fear in Hartwell's eyes told him that deception was working. "Lord Aldrich would not be pleased if our security was compromised because we rushed an experiment. No, you're absolutely right." Hartwell began putting away his instruments with shaking hands. "Can't risk exposure. Perhaps tomorrow morning would be better when Morrison is off duty." "Ah!" Marcus felt a surge of relief, but he kept his expression professionally neutral. "Be much safer. I'll coordinate with Lord Aldrich to ensure the timing works with overall security protocols." As they prepared to leave the room, Marcus looked back at the little girl. She was still conscious, still frightened, but she would live through another night. It wasn't salvation, but it was time. Time for Elena's plan to work. Time for them to find a way to get her to safety. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of horror as Marcus toured other parts of the facility. He witnessed experiments that would haunt his dreams for the rest of his life, but he forced himself to watch, to remember, to document everything in his mind. Each atrocity he observed strengthened his resolve to see this nightmare ended. As evening approached, Marcus found Elena in the storage area near the kitchens. She had prepared a small vial of clear liquid and was wrapping it carefully in cloth. "This is the sleeping compound," she whispered. 3 drops in water, and she appeared dead for about 6 hours. More than 3 drops, and she really will be dead. Less than 3, and she might wake up too soon. Marcus took the vial with trembling hands. "How do I get this to her without being seen? During the evening meal service, I'll create a distraction in the main corridor. While everyone's attention is diverted, you'll have maybe 2 minutes alone with her." Elena's eyes were filled with desperate hope and terrible fear. "After she drinks it, we wait for the compound to take effect, then pray our timing works with the body disposal schedule. What if something goes wrong? What if the dosage is incorrect, or someone discovers the substitution before we can get her out? Then we're all dead, and she's no worse off than she would have been anyway." Elena's voice was grim but determined. "Marcus, I've watched dozens of innocent people die in these chambers over the past 2 years. This might be our only chance to save even one of them." As night fell, Marcus made his way back to the underground facility. The evening shift was smaller than the day crew, with only essential personnel maintaining the ongoing experiments. Security was lighter too, which would help their plan, but also made Marcus more noticeable as he moved through the corridors. He found the little girl exactly where they had left her, still strapped to the table in the innovation wing. She had fallen into an exhausted sleep, but woke when she heard his footsteps. Her eyes were red from crying, but she looked at him with a spark of hope that nearly broke his heart. "Are you here to take me home?" she whispered. Marcus approached carefully, checking to ensure they were truly alone. "What's your name, Lucy?" "Lucy Brennan. My papa said we were just taking some food because Mama is sick and we don't have any money. He said we weren't really stealing, just borrowing." Fresh tears ran down her cheeks. "I want to go home now. Please, can I go home? Lucy, I'm going to help you, but I need you to be very brave and do exactly what I tell you, okay?" Marcus kept his voice gentle, while his heart hammered against his ribs. She nodded eagerly. "Are you a good man? Mama says there are still good men in the world, even when bad things happen." I'm trying to be. Marcus pulled out the vial Alina had prepared. Lucy, I need you to drink this. It's going to make you very sleepy. So sleepy that you won't wake up for a long time. But when you do wake up, you'll be somewhere safe, away from this place. The child's eyes widened with fear. Is it poison? You going to kill me? No, sweetheart, I'm trying to save you. But the only way to get you out of here is to make everyone think you're already dead. Marcus poured the clear liquid into a small cup of water. I know it's scary, but it's the only way. Lucy studied his face for a long moment, then reached for the cup with hands that were shaking from more than just the cold. Will I see my mama and papa again? I hope so. It quickly, all of it. She drained the cup in 3 swift gulps and immediately made a face at the bitter taste. How long before her words trailed off as her eyelids began to droop? Within minutes, her breathing became so shallow that Marcus had to lean close to. Detected it all. As to any casual observer, Lucy Brennan appeared to be dead. Now came the most dangerous part. Marcus had to report the child's unexpected death to the night supervisor, arrange for her body to be included in the evening disposal, ensure that she made it safely out of the palace without anyone discovering the deception. He found Knight, Supervisor Crane, reviewing reports in a small office near the main corridor. Crane was a practical man who treated the horrors around him as simply another job to be managed efficiently. Sir, we have a situation in the innovation wing, Marcus reported. The test subject for tomorrow's enhancement experiment has died. Unexpectedly. Crane looked up from his paperwork with mild interest. Natural causes or equipment failure? Appears to be natural. Possibly her system couldn't handle the stress of preparation. Dr. Hartwell will want to examine the body, but it should be included in tonight's disposal to prevent contamination. Standard procedure, Crane agreed, making a note on his papers. Add her to the transport manifest. The burial detail leaves at midnight. Marcus saluted and left the office, his pulse racing. The first part of the plan had worked. Now he had to ensure that he was assigned to oversee the body disposal and that Elena's contacts would be ready to receive an unconscious child. In the middle of the night, as he made his way back to check on Lucy's motionless form, Marcus realized that there was no turning back now. He had committed himself fully to this desperate rescue attempt, and if it failed, all 3 of them would pay the ultimate price. But for the first time since discovering the underground chambers, Marcus felt something other than horror and helplessness. He felt hope, fragile and dangerous, but real nonetheless. Tonight, one innocent life might be saved. It would have to be enough to sustain him through whatever came next. At 11:30 that night, Marcus stood in the underground chamber's loading area, watching as workers placed 3 wooden crates onto a cart. Each crate supposedly contained the body of someone who had died during the day's experiments. Of them actually did. The third contained a 10-year-old girl who appeared dead but was hopefully just sleeping deeply enough to fool anyone who might check. The burial detail consisted of Marcus, 2 regular guards, and a driver who handled the horse-drawn cart. The route would take them through a tunnel that connected the palace's lower levels to an old cemetery outside the walls. It was a journey that normally took about 40 minutes, but tonight it felt like the longest trip of Marcus's life. As they loaded the cart, Marcus tried to appear calm and professional while his heart pounded against his ribs. If Lucy woke up too soon, if someone decided to inspect the crates, if Elena's contacts weren't waiting at the designated spot, any number of things could go catastrophically wrong. The tunnel was dark and narrow, lit only by torches mounted. On the cart, the sound of wheels on stone echoed off the walls, and Marcus found himself listening intently for any sound from the crates that might indicate. Lucy was stirring. So far, Elena's sleeping compound seemed to be working perfectly. Guard Captain Voss, who was leading the burial detail, made casual conversation as they traveled. Strange business tonight. Usually we don't get children down in the chambers. Marcus forced himself to respond normally. Lord Aldrich mentioned they were testing new compounds. Sometimes the younger subjects react differently than adults. Seems wasteful, if you ask me. Could have gotten more use out of her before she died. Voss's casual tone when discussing a child's death made Marcus want to draw his sword. But he managed to keep his expression neutral. "Different experiments require different subjects," Marcus replied. "The research goals come first." As they emerged from the tunnel into the cemetery grounds, Marcus saw two figures waiting by a cluster of old graves. Alina had told him that her contacts would be there, but seeing them in person made the reality of what they were attempting suddenly very real. If these people couldn't be trusted, or if they panicked when they discovered they were supposed to help smuggle out a living child, the entire plan would collapse. "Who are those people?" Guard Willis asked, pointing toward the waiting figures. Captain Voss squinted in the darkness. "Gravediggers, probably. Sometimes local workers help with the burials when we have multiple bodies." As they approached, Marcus could see that the two figures were a middle-aged man and a younger woman, both dressed in rough working clothes. The man stepped forward as the cart stopped. "Evening, guards. I'm Thomas, and this is my daughter Mary. We're here to help with tonight's burials." His voice was steady, but Marcus could see tension in his posture. "We don't usually need help," Captain Voss said suspiciously. Marcus spoke up quickly. "Lord Aldrich wanted extra security tonight. These people have been cleared to assist." Hoped his implied authority would prevent further questions. Voss shrugged. "Fine by me. Less work for us." "Where do you want the bodies?" Thomas pointed to 3 freshly dug graves about 50 yards from where they stood. "We've prepared the sites. If you could help us carry the crates over there, we can handle the rest." As they lifted the crates from the cart, Marcus made sure he was carrying the one containing Lucy. The wooden box was heavier than he expected. He prayed that the child was still breathing steadily inside. Thomas took the other end of her crate, and Marcus caught his eye briefly. The man gave an almost imperceptible nod. At the grave sites, the other guards began lowering 2 of the crates into their holes immediately. But Thomas stopped them before they could lower Lucy's crate. "Wait," he said. "I need to check something about this one. The measurements seem off." Captain Voss looked annoyed. "What kind of measurements?" "Grave depth. This one might be too shallow." Thomas knelt by Lucy's crate and appeared to be examining the grave. But Marcus saw him quickly pry open one corner of the wooden box and slip something inside. "Actually, I think we need to take this crate back to our workshop. The dimensions are definitely wrong." "That's irregular," Voss protested. "All bodies are supposed to be buried tonight." Marcus stepped forward. "Security protocols allow for adjustments. When there are technical problems, Lord Aldrich values proper procedures above rigid schedules." While they argued, Mary had moved to help fill in the 2 graves that now contained actual bodies. She worked quickly and efficiently, clearly eager to complete the legitimate burials and get away from the area. Finally, Captain Voss threw up. His hands? "Fine. Take the crate. But I want a written report explaining the delay, and that body better be properly buried within 24 hours. "Of course," Thomas agreed. "We'll handle everything according to regulations." As the guards loaded their empty cart and prepared to return to the palace, Marcus felt a mixture of relief and terror. The first part of their desperate plan had worked. Lucy was out of the underground chambers and in the hands of people who would hopefully keep her safe. But now Marcus had to return to the facility and continue his role as a security coordinator. Knowing that eventually someone would discover the girl's disappearance, the journey back through the tunnel seemed much faster than the trip out. Captain Voss and Guard Willis discussed their plans for the rest of their shift, completely unaware that they had just participated in a rescue operation that could bring down the entire Woo underground facility if it were discovered. Back in the chambers, Marcus completed his security rounds and filed his reports, trying to maintain the appearance of routine duty. He noted the time of the burial details return, confirmed that all bodies had been properly disposed of, logged the minor irregularity with one crate that would be handled the following day. As dawn approached, Marcus finally allowed himself to hope that Lucy Brennan might actually survive. Alina had told him that her contacts would take the child far from the kingdom to a place where she could grow up safely under a new identity. It wasn't the reunion with her parents that Lucy wanted, but it was life, and sometimes that had to be enough. Over the following days, Marcus threw himself into his role as security coordinator with newfound determination. He memorized every detail of the facility's operations, identified key personnel and their routines, and began documenting evidence of the experiments being conducted. Lena continued her work in the kitchens, carefully noting everything she had observed while maintaining her cover as a loyal servant, but their success with Lucy had also created new dangers. Dr. Hartwell was puzzled by the child's unexpected death and wanted to examine her body to understand what had gone wrong. When he was told that the body had already been buried due to a paperwork error, he became suspicious and began asking uncomfortable questions. Lord Aldrich also seemed to be watching Marcus more carefully. During their daily meetings, the Lord Chancellor's questions became more probing, his manner more calculating. Marcus began to suspect that his cover might not be as secure as he had hoped. 3 weeks after Lucy's rescue, the crisis Marcus had been dreading finally arrived. He was reviewing security reports in his small office when Elena burst through the door, her face pale with terror. "They know," she whispered. "Thomas was captured trying to help another family escape the kingdom. Under torture, he revealed information about our operation. Guards are already searching for the missing girl, and they suspect someone inside the palace helped her escape." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "How long do we have? Maybe hours? Maybe less." "Aldrich has ordered all personnel to remain in the facility until further notice. No one comes or goes without his personal authorization." Through a small window, Marcus could see armed guards taking positions throughout the underground corridors. The net was closing, and soon there would be no escape for anyone involved in Lucy's rescue. But as Marcus looked at the evidence he had been gathering, detailed notes about the experiments, lists of personnel involved, documentation of the facilities, structure, and operations, he realized that their mission wasn't over. Even if he and Alina were caught, even if they paid the ultimate price for their defiance, the information they had collected could still expose the truth about the kingdom's darkest secret. The question was whether they could find a way to get that evidence to someone who could act on it before Lord Aldrich's guards found them, as footsteps echoed in the corridor outside his office. Marcus made a decision that would determine not just his own fate, but the future of every innocent person. Trapped in the chambers below, the guard who had left his post to uncover the kingdom's darkest secret was about to make his final stand.